bienvenue. Welcome once again to a live stream with Karen Bashford, the empowerment mentor, where she and I often toss around ideas which are usually quite foreign to me, and I use it as a bit of a learning phase. So if you guys don't mind learning vicariously through me, then we'll all learn together. Today we are talking about something that people don't talk enough about, which is generational wounds and how they are affecting you. So I'm going to put my silly hat on and say, Karen, what's a generational wound?
Okay, generational wound literally is your history, your family history, your past. Whether it's you as a person or whether it's your family's history, whether it's a great grandmother's history. It's all generational because each generation goes through something different. But you add to what you already have within each generation.
Right. So I asked you off air. By that, did you mean epigenetics? In other words, that past traumas are genetically tied to you, and you said it was more than that. You said it was extra to that. Yes. And is that because of the surroundings you find yourself in?
Yes. Well, if you consider I was born in Chelsea, I also know that my family have some Swedish history. So Chelsea, London. My parents were born during the war. That's generational history. And that's without knowing anything about Sweden and what happened in Sweden during the war or anything like that, or any sort of history that comes prior to that, or even any family history that comes prior to being wherever my family were prior to my parents being born. My grandparents, I know, come from the countryside. I don't know where, but I know they come from the countryside. I do know that my grandmother had a health issue that would have had an impact on how life would have been for her. That's generational history.
And that carries with you?
Yes, because we are energy.
Right.
Energy lives within us because that's who we are. So yes, epigenetics is our genes that can be switched on or off depending on what happened to us. So you can have trauma from a family history that you're still carrying until you actually deal with that trauma, and then the gene can be switched off. But generational trauma is passed down through the words, the actions, and the stories we tell each other. And we can re-traumatize ourselves simply by hearing stories or even watching TV programs or dramas or anything like that, or even reading books. We pick up history and are triggered by what we read and see.
By that logic, can it be dangerous to retrace our own histories, because we could re-trigger the same trauma? But quixotically, one of the only ways of dealing with some of that generational trauma is by revisiting it, isn't it?
No.
You don't need to revisit it.
No, you can have the history, but you don't need to go back into it. And the history is something you can learn when you're releasing your trauma without revisiting the trauma. That's what's so special about what I do, is I don't take you back into the trauma, but you can still learn about it.
Certainly, a traditional therapy usually involves you facing the very thing that traumatized you in the first place.
Yeah, which will re-traumatize you.
Well, I have often thought that it must be horrendous, especially if we're talking about just compounding it together. If we're talking about generational trauma, and that thing, let's say, for instance, a good portion of my family are Russian originally Polish, Poles that ran to Russia and then got part of the pogroms. If I was to revisit any of that, my goodness, the horrendousness of those circumstances, traumatic.
You don't need to do that, though. Yes, you can learn about your family history out of interest, if nothing else. But you don't need to relive that trauma within your own body. Because at the end of the day, your subconscious mind and body knows what you need to know to release and allow you then to be able to step back into those memories without losing the information that you would have had, but without stepping into the trauma. And that for me is the most important aspect of healing from trauma, is learning the lessons, because everything that happens to us has a lesson. And if we can actually release ourselves from the trauma of it, but take the lessons, how much difference will it make in your life if you're actually aware of your past but aren't triggered by it?
Oh, it incalculable. But the problem is, it's quite, I mean, traditionally you learn your lessons by facing your pain, and if you're not going to do that, then you've kind of got to, I don't know how that would work. I mean, it sounds like a brilliant thing, but I don't know how that would work. How do you learn the lesson something without facing it?
I always say to somebody, if you want to know an answer, ask yourself the question and just let it go. Because you can ask yourself a question and allow the answer to come through without actually stepping into an event or even spending time focusing on it. Because your mind, your subconscious mind, will always give you an answer that, if you allow yourself to hear it or receive it, because we can receive it through how we feel, we can receive it through what we see. It could be somebody just says something to you and it's then said by somebody else and you're thinking, why am I receiving this twice? That's often the way it works, that you put this message out, I want to know this, and you receive the answer simply through somebody speaking to you and then somebody repeating it. That will give you the answer, because there's a light bulb in you that goes, I asked that question and they just answered it. And you can get answers that way. You can learn about yourself by simply asking yourself questions and just letting it go.
All right. So once you've made your mind up,
changed you, hasn't it?
well, it's twisting my noodle as usual. How, I don't even, where would you start? What's the first thing to do to try and deal with the fact that you have generational trauma? Having accepted that, I think we must do it, especially anybody over the age of 20. We're all going to have picked up something.
Well, you pick it up as a baby. It's no two ways about it. You will pick trauma up through your family as a baby.
Yes, it's unavoidable, isn't it? Really?
Yes, absolutely.
So people, it always makes me smile in a wry manner when people say, "Oh, I want to avoid getting hurt," and I think what you don't realize is that life will happen to you whether you like it or not. The question is how you deal with
Respond.
that. How you respond.
And anyway, as a human being, you're going to be hurt by other people anyway, unless you choose to not accept what they're saying about you or a situation. And who's going to do that? Because we're naturally curious to know about ourselves through other people.
Yes. It's an interesting one, because a lot of people are very scared to know what other people actually think of them, and then build all these stories in their minds of what they must be thinking. I hear it, oh, they're all looking at me thinking I do this or that, or look at that they assume X, Y, and Z. I swear most of the time people don't take any notice at all, but people tell each other these stories. And if you've got inbuilt trauma response, which means if you think that these things are going on, your brain will make it very real that it actually has gone on, and then you'll respond accordingly.
Yeah, and you become anxious because you're thinking everyone's talking about you, when in actual fact they're probably not interested in you at all.
Exactly. And it's kind of, you've built your own trauma loop in a way.
Yeah.
So where do you start with this, Karen?
You start with curiosity.
Okay.
Just be curious. If you look at a child and the way a child, even as a very young baby, it's always curious. It will pick something up and automatically stick it in its mouth because what is this? That's how it finds out what things are. Has it got a taste? Has it got any feeling that I can pick up through using my tongue or my lips on it? Or how does it smell? How does it feel in my hands? We're automatically curious. And as adults, we dismiss that curiosity. And yet, if you allow yourself to be curious and ask yourself questions, but let go of wanting an immediate answer, because that's half the problem. With trauma, you do not necessarily want an immediate answer. Because by asking appropriate questions like, what do I need to know about this? Or tell me what happened, you're not going to allow your conscious mind a chance to interfere if you just say, right, I've asked the question, now it's gone. I'm just going to wait for the answer and stop thinking about it. And that's the hardest part about it. Most people, when they ask themselves a question, they automatically then try and answer it. You have got to stop trying to answer your own questions. Because then you don't allow your subconscious to come in and give you the answer.
Well, it's quite common, actually. I mean, as a marketeer, I spend most of my time trying to plant questions in people's mind so that they answer them themselves. Now, if you're doing it to yourself, then you're onto a non-starter, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do it when you go to bed. And literally just go to sleep with the question in your mind, okay, what do I need to know about this? Or tell me about this. And then just let go. Stop thinking about it. And actually, if you're tired enough, you do it as you're literally about to fall asleep, you will let it go because your subconscious mind will take over and you'll just let it go and you'll sleep. And you could find that you come up with an answer in the morning. You could land up being standing in the shower and suddenly get the answer. Or you can just be doing, the morning routine and not really thinking about anything. And you'll suddenly get an answer popping. I get so many answers that way. It's scary.
How long does it take? You have to wait the entire night for to get the answer.
No, you could land up dreaming it. It depends on what the question was.
Right.
And if you set the intention when you go to sleep that you will remember your dreams, as long as you've got a notepad next to you that you can record, because quite often you'll remember them.
I was going to say this is probably cool to have some sort of way of recording. All right. We're getting towards the end of this podcast. I hope everybody's enjoying this one. Would you summarize, please, for me?
Summary is everyone has generational trauma. You cannot avoid it.
Yes.
Your parents would have had it. Your great-grandparents, everyone would have had ancestral and generational trauma.
Right.
If you want to release that trauma, you need to get the lessons that are available from that trauma. Because quite often, when I'm working with somebody, I find that if I ask them to do a certain thing to get an answer, as soon as they get the answer, the trauma is gone. They actually say to me, what was I thinking about? What was I trying to do? Because it's gone. So the most important thing is to understand that when you ask yourself the question, stop trying to answer it. You will not ever answer with the correct answer if you try to answer it. Your subconscious mind works on the basis that you can ask a question and it will go searching for the answer. Your ego will automatically go to what it already knows. So you'll never get a true answer from your ego if you want to know what trauma is and where it comes from and what lessons you need to learn. So ask the question, preferably just before you go to sleep. Accept that you can remember your dreams by setting an intention. And tell your ego to shut up.
There we go. That's today's great sound bite there. Tell your ego to shut up. And probably, you know what, that could be said to a lot of us. Thank you, Karen. If you're interested in generational trauma and how to release it, if you're interested in perhaps finding a way forward, there is a couple of things I'd point you to. First of all, of course, Karen Bashford has a lovely YouTube channel, which is just starting to be populated with video interviews and so on that she's working on. Also, she has a lovely audio podcast, which I'm going to draw your attention to by means of showing you a QR code, because that will help you get there more quickly. There it is. And also, I'm going to talk about perhaps the best way to start your wellness journey. Part of the time you don't know where to start, and probably a conversation with good Karen will actually help you get forwards, start your journey from the beginning. So go to KarenBashford.com, have a discussion with Karen, and perhaps you'll be able to find what the next steps would be, and part of which may be releasing generational trauma. Who knows? And I would like to thank you all for watching. And just remember, it's a journey of 1,000 steps. You have to start with a single one. Thank you very much, Karen, for once again educating poor little old me. And to the rest of you, keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and maybe you'll catch the moon on the way. But by the way, look after your mental health. Bye-bye now.
Bye.